Everyone thinks of changing the world, but no one thinks of changing himself. Leo Tolstoy. Welcome to the Guyana Dialogue. I'm your hostess, Shamiza Ali. Good evening to everyone joining us on Facebook and YouTube. Hope everyone is having a productive week so far. Tonight, our discussion will be on information technology and development, coming prosperity and race relations. The Guyana Dialogue is being sponsored by a coordinating council of Guyanese based in the US, UK, Canada, Guyana, and the Caribbean. Funding support is by well known philanthropist Dave Narine from Dave West Indian Imports. Please welcome my moderator for tonight, Dr. Tara Singh. Welcome,
Thank
Dr.
you.
Tara.
Thank you.
Our panelists tonight will be Mr. Shrad Kublal and Professor Muniram Budu. Welcome to both of you, and thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Hello.
He is the minister within the Office of the Prime Minister. He is responsible for media information. Please welcome the Honorable Kwame W.E. McCoy. Good evening and welcome to you, Minister.
Thank you very much, Shamiza. Congratulations.
Pleasure having
Good
you
evening,
here this
Shamiza, and
evening.
to you. Tremendous. Thank you.
Thank you for being here this evening, Minister. Dr. Tara?
Thank you very much for the invitation.
Okay.
I'm looking forward to a very good discussion.
Minister, welcome to the program. We are happy to have you here. There are some matters we'd like you to clarify. But before we start, I want to ask the people of Guyana to fully participate in census because I believe today's census day in Guyana. And it's important that everybody be counted so that we can know exactly the demographic population movements, and that will help to guide and formulate public policy and programs, etc. So it's very important. Um, Now, I know you're working with the Prime Minister in the portfolio of information technology, information responsibility for NCN, Ghana Chronicle, etc. But I also know we've been following you. You have been traveling throughout the country to do outreach of various kinds in support of the work of other ministries as well. You know, you are the eyes and ears of the government, so to speak. You are falling under the prime ministerial portfolio. Now we want to start off by asking you, how do you see the role of the state media like NCN and the Chronicle in the promotion of government policies and programs? And is it correct to say that the state media only publish or carry government-sponsored news? So please
Thank you
proceed.
very much. Good evening to our viewers, listeners, wherever you are. And I'm happy to be joining the dialogue this evening. And very interesting question, and it is one that have permeated the society over many years. You know, the state media has a particular role, and it is part of the government apparatus in respect to being able to serve the people of Guyana. A very important aspect of sharing information and educating the population on the programs of government, the policies of government, and very importantly too, about various aspects of our society, culturally and otherwise, and therefore the state media has its very important role. There have been debates for many years about the whether the state media role is well positioned and how it is used. But I can tell you that it is really an important aspect of government work as it serves to fulfill a very important um, constitutional provision, which is being our citizens being able to have access to information, being able to uh, be fed, well, to be taught and be educated and entertained as well. And so the state media is used for those purposes. and to be able to have our citizens brought up to date with the various aspects of life in our society, and indeed too what is happening around the world. And so the state media for me plays a very important role in the information chain, and therefore it is something that our citizens have looked forward to for many years, and they rely on the state media for information, whether it be through the NCN, whether it be through Guyana Chronicle, um, and of course the work that the Department of Public Information plays in highlighting the various matters in relation to government work. And no exception to that is the feedback that we have from citizens in respect and reactions in respect to the work that we do. And so the state media is also used in that way and manner, and it carries a wide gamut of information and news, and education material that crisscross our country and provides for the various demographics of our society. Very important role. And it is not because over many years, and we've always had this debate, the state media does carry news outside of just what the government itself is doing. You have stakeholders in society, you have other players in the governance structure, such as the opposition. It does reflect news coming out from those various groups and organizations and other parts of our society, cultural programs, religious programs, and a whole lot of uh, information and educational programs that we see on the state media on a daily basis.
Um, I just want to follow up. This might be a related question. I think one of the obstacles to the freedom of expression in Guyana is the current set of libel laws that are preventing people from expressing themselves. If they say something, they may be sued. Guyana seems to be a land of suers. Is there any plan of the government to revise the libel laws in Guyana?
Well, there are many things that are being said and um, have not been. We have full expression here, I believe, in Guyana. However, information or the freedom of expression also comes with some level of responsibility. We must be able to have in expressions that uh, rely on accuracy, on facts, and therefore we will see in our society on a daily basis very robust debates and very intense discussions and expressions from citizens, from opinion writers, and so forth in our society, and that's not prohibited. However, there are laws that protect people and their rights and the way that they can be slandered through expression. I believe that as society continues to grow and we move in the direction of modernity, that we can review these laws from time to time, and we can find ways to make sure that they reflect uh, the evolution taking place in other parts of the world in respect to the freedom of expression. But we have a free media in Guyana, unhindered, uninterfered. Um, we rely on the media for information and for our news on a daily basis. There are times that they don't always get it right, but whenever the occasions arise for us to be able to make corrections and have them do retractions, we will so um, request, and we've seen very responsible behavior in most parts in terms of the media. There's some media houses that have over time gone overboard in representing issues, and therefore they are taken on occasionally because we have to be fair too, that if a particular news item is set out to smear one's character, to damage the reputation of the government, that we have a responsibility to see that media house operate in a more responsible manner, and in that case, responsible enough to be able to make retractions and to be able to um, correct themselves. But we don't censor, we don't intimidate the media in Guyana. You've seen us this year moving up on the Press Freedom Index, which means we're doing well in terms of freedom of the press in Guyana. And we would like to keep it that way. We believe very um, sincerely, as a People's Progressive Party civic government, in the freedom of expression. It is important for the development of our society. It is important, and it's linked to all that we are doing in terms of the transformation in our society. And therefore, we will continue to embrace and support every effort that seeks to bring about freedom of expression. However, all of this must be done in a responsible manner and in a manner that we can all account um, individually and collectively for the expressions that we make to any particular issue as being accurate and factual. And so I think that's very important for us to always understand as a society.
If someone needs a radio or TV license, can you explain the procedure for this?
Well, by act, there is a Guyana National Broadcasting Authority to which individuals with desire or interest in establishing media outlets such as radio stations or or a television station, they apply to the Broadcasting Authority, because the Broadcasting Authority will be able to guide them and us in relation to um, the issues of the availability of frequencies and other issues that they take into consideration, given that frequency is such a prime asset, and therefore we must be able to have it used in a particular way. And then you have to also take into consideration the population and market share, etc., in relation to advertising and so forth, that any one of these stations would have to rely on for the sustenance of their television or radio station. So it is a process where they apply to the GNB, and it's considered. There's no particular timeline by which their applications are considered, but nevertheless is expected to be considered at an appropriate time as determined by the
All
board
right. Thank
of
you.
appropriation.
Thank you very much. I'll put you on now to Mr. Kublal, who's our urban and regional planner by profession. On the next panelist is Professor Muram Budu. I don't know if you know him, but he's a professor in structural and civil engineering. He was attached to Arizona State University, and I believe he's doing some work now for Guyana, advising them on a short-term project. So I hand you over to Mr. Kublal to ask you some questions or clarifications.
Mr. McCoy, welcome to this show. I just want you to add a little what Dr. Tara had said. Is there a guideline that governs people who will be granted a broadcast license to broadcast whatever they want? And there's like government guideline that they have to be within that structure to function?
To put it, let me put it this way: that the Broadcasting Authority, in its consideration of license, they do have guidelines. It may not be as wide as one may want, but and then we have to also follow the laws in relation to broadcasting, and so those are the two areas in which one can look forward to in terms of having guidance on how they should utilize the airwaves, and therefore the entire arena of broadcasting calls for a lot of responsible behavior. There are things that you can say, and it's not only in Guyana, it's every other part of the world that would mandate and require you to exhibit responsible behavior on radio or television, and it's no different here in Guyana. And so I believe that it is important that um, we always keep that um, as an important guide for ourselves, and perhaps do our own little introspection and self-monitoring and censorship, because otherwise we would be playing outside of the parameters of the game.
Um, Recently, well, not recent, but a while now, the opposition have been going out of the normal media area, and they've been going in the social media, and they've been saying a lot of negative things about the government, and even now they're starting with this emerging apartheid, which no one can able to say. I mean, could identify existing in Guyana. Um, give us your perspective of the government ways of handling such negative behavior by the opposition and certain elements in the Ghana community, and even over here in New York.
Well, you would imagine that an opposition could utilize the airwaves, the social media, any platform that may be granted to them or available to them um, to criticize the work of the government. And they can do that either objectively, either in a way or manner that leaves much to be desired. And in the case of the Guyana opposition, it is indeed exactly that. An opposition that is so shallow. If you look at what comes out from the opposition on a daily basis, so they like to rally around uh, certain issues, the issue of race in particular. And they have, over time, gone on the matter of race and discrimination. For me and for us, they have really been trying very hard to create racial strife in our country by the very things that they say on a daily basis and some of the things they do as well. Look at what happened in Parliament uh, with the disruption over the mace. Look at the comment that came out of those from the opposition side of the Parliament. Look at what they did to the young man who works with the Parliament buildings, with Parliament, when they had him on the ground and as he tried to protect the mace. He was referred to in a very derogatory term, racist term. Um, every single one of them almost on a daily basis vent uh, and spew racism in our country. And it is for me so disgusting and offensive, like it is for many other Guyanese. We have and are moving in a direction in this country in which everyone is coming around to understanding the vision of the president and the government, the vision of Dr. Ali in relation to where he wants to take and where the government will be taking our country. His vision in relation to how we will operate in any given sector, vision in relation to how we as citizens are expected to behave and to rally around his One Guyana platform. And we are working on this One Guyana platform because we believe very firmly and strongly that all that we're doing would amount to zero if there is the absence of racial harmony and unity, and not only from the ethnic perspective, but unity as well as Guyanese and as various stakeholders in the development thrust and paradigm of this country. And so we have to be able to work together. We have to be able to put aside petty differences and make sure that we understand the common vision and that we all work towards that grand development scheme that we all aspire and see as the ideal for Guyana, and that we all work in ways and manner that would not uh, have us latch on to the issues of race in unjustifiable terms and manner, rather, what you see coming out from the opposition. People are being discriminated in the health sector. Very difficult to comprehend, not because you lack comprehension, but because it is the most stupid thing to actually say, and worse yet, to provide evidence on or about. And so they run around and they talk about racial discrimination. Someone is discriminated on the basis of their race without any empirical data and without any evidence, without any supporting basis, and they just bandied around race and discrimination, racial discrimination, and one leaves to wonder on what basis and from where the opposition is getting its information. Could you point to us at any given time which are the 100 Afro Guyanese men and women that have been uh, denied a house law? Which 100 Guyanese have been denied access to health care? Which 100 Guyanese, Afro Guyanese, have been denied access to any of the general services provided by government? You may find Afro Guyanese on a list at the Ministry of Housing awaiting house lots, like you would find every other Guyanese on that very list, because there's a backlog. Does that go to say that there is discrimination practices or policies of the government because these people are on a list and it happened to be Afro Guyanese? But equally so, it is other races. If you check all our policies, they're not designed on the basis of race. We have no interest in being selective in our policies on a basis of race. Everything that we do caters to every single Guyanese. Sometimes they're targeted programs that seeks, for example, to target the disabled or to target single mothers or to target a particular group of people in our society. And that could be understood as being just what it is. And it will target, regard them, and make sure that they have access to whatever facilities or services being provided by the government on the basis of the criteria. And so we have to be very careful. And Guyanese have to be very careful that they're not drawn in to this mantra and this trap about race and race and race, because it's an emotive issue. And the opposition recognizes that. And that is why they use this issue in a way that to seek to bring about disunity and to bring division among us. I am happy, and as I move around this country every day, what gives me great hope is the fact, in particularly young people in our society have no interest in race and in the way and manner it is being used by the opposition in particular. And so we have a promising outlook in relation to our people and race relations in this country. And it must be our concern, and it must be our effort to ensure that we work with every single Guyanese regardless. Look, no better an example of how to do that than our president, Dr. Mohammed Irfan Ali. And the cabinet members are following through with the initiatives of the president and the manifesto promises, as we are determined to make sure that we satisfy and provide those commitments that we made to our people, the social contract that we have with our people. That's what matters most for all of us in the government, and in particularly at the cabinet level. And so to actually try to brand or to link Guyana to some form of apartheid is almost so insultive, absolutely insultive to our intelligence, and even more so to the actual victims of apartheid, to those who endured this cruel system of apartheid. As you all know, that apartheid was a constitutionally institutionalized system, legislative system that determines and determines in the countries that in South Africa, where in particularly apartheid existed, that determine which school white people should go to and which school black people should go to, which health facility is available to white versus black, which of any services are available to whites versus black. We don't have anything close, near, even an inch of it to what existed in during the days of apartheid. And so it is very insulting. And the opposition must be called out for such. I don't know if I can actually find the most appropriate word to describe them this evening, but this race baiting, these efforts and tactics at dividing our people must be condemned, and be condemned very vehemently and strongly and continuously, as the opposition should find itself alone on this mantra of race and ethnic division.
I noticed too that in the government media, the NCN and the newspaper, much of these issues are addressed. But in the social media, I think, what do you think that, do you think we have enough coverage to counteract these kind of negative mantras of the opposition? Because majority of the Guyanese, especially those of, well, I would not like to say that, but especially the countryside and places where Guyanese don't have access to the NCN news, and the newspaper, they listen to the gossip of the social media, and they're carried away with these things. Do you think that there need more for us to address these issues in the social media?
Look, my attitude, and particularly to the question you asked, my attitude always in life, whether it relates to whether we are answering these matters sufficiently, or it relates to roads or schools or any given matter, is that I always believe that you could do more in everything, and we can do better in everything. So I'm that person with that type of thinking always, that we can always, there's always room for improvement. And you can find, nevertheless, a wide array of programs by government and opposition. One may determine that one versus the other may be sufficient and insufficient. But yes, I believe that continuously we have to work at monitoring all that is taking place, and in particularly where they are, and to be able to target the audiences, because you're right, some people do get carried away by these narratives, and we have to be constantly answering and in some cases repeating our answers, to be able to bring society up to speed and to give them an understanding on these very many issues. One can say there could never be sufficient responses, and even if they were, that you will still have situations in which some people might very well allow themselves to be carried away by one narrative versus the other. But we are there, and we are providing the facts, we're providing information to people, we are answering, and we are also setting our agenda in relation to the work that we are doing and the narrative around the work we're doing. And I think that that is important. But
All right, thank you.
my attitude is always, yes, there's always room for improvement.
Yeah, I'm going to pass you on to Professor Maniram Budu. Please answer two questions.
Minister McCoy, the primary topic in which you're going to have dialogue with us today is common prosperity and race relations. With regards to common prosperity, what do you, or in fact the Guyana government, mean by common prosperity? How would this be measured?
Well, common prosperity is creating prosperity for all, and creating prosperity in a way, and for all in a way that could be measured on the basis of the steady improvement in people's lives, the assets that they acquire, better paying jobs, more jobs, being able to have access to services, being able to have access to facilities, and more disposable income in their pocket. That's common prosperity for us, because we have to be able to take all that we have as the blessings of oil and gas and all the other resources that we're blessed with, to use it in a way and manner that will be able to build our country step by step, to use the resources of oil and gas to diversify our economy, to fortify our efforts in agriculture, to make sure that we expand our agriculture and in a most diverse manner, to make sure that the educational opportunities become so buoyant and so readily available to all people in Guyana, because prosperity must not be seen only as the availability of disposable income or better paying jobs, but it is also about how we use education to educate our population, to bring them up to speed with the best technology, the best techniques in any given field or sector. It is about how do we house our population, provide housing and home ownership for families. It is about how we can make open up markets for additional jobs. It is about how we can get people in jobs. All those things are linked to prosperity. It is about the ease of doing business. It is about the ease of accessing government services through ICT platforms, etc., e-services. Those are all things that are linked to prosperity. And those are all things that we are working towards as a government, to be able to connect our people to the real world and the world of prosperity in relation to us being able to move up on the index in terms of our human development. We are determined as a government to make this happen, and as you've seen, signs of them happening already. And it is for our people, every single one of us. That's why the One Guyana platform is important. And if we are totally unified, and if we are together, and if we reject the divisive policies of some people who find it very, very attractive, we can move much faster to this common prosperity. And that is what the president's One Guyana is all about too, making sure that we can work together for a common objective of taking our country forward, and for every single Guyanese. We are working for everyone, regardless whether you voted for us or not. It is our responsibility as a government to provide you with housing as a facility available to our citizens, to provide you with health care, to provide you with disability grant, to provide you with assistance in whichever way and manner we determine it to be feasible and possible. And that's what we are about. And that's what it means to drive and to move our people towards common prosperity.
Now, you mentioned that you're moving up the index. What index you're talking about?
Well, in terms of human development, in
Mhm.
terms of us being able to add value on a daily basis and in a constant and steady manner to people's daily lives, improvement in conditions of work, uh, additional employment, making sure that the GDP grows so that we can enjoy dignified living and comfort in our society. That's what my
Mhm.
um, that's what I'm referring to.
Yeah, because GDP is not a good measure for those things that you outlined, because that GDP only focus on growth in consumer goods and services. I recently saw a report by Cambridge University in which they proposed to the UN to look at wealth economy as a better measure for prosperity. And I think those in that report, they consider most of the things you have outlined. And I would suggest you look into that report to get a good measure of prosperity. Do you plan to regularly survey the public to get their feeling on whether they are becoming prosperous or not?
Well, I don't know how much you see what comes out from Guyana, maybe, and I know you're overseas and you may not be able to see everything. But we are, as a government, working with people. Every day you can see us in the field. There are outreaches, ministers are going into communities, officials are following up on initiatives and commitments that we make. People are engaged and engaged to the extent in which we um, gather feedback from individuals on various government um, initiatives and programs, and that's part of the feedback. But also, the feedback is our information and data that provide us with the opportunity of knowing that at any given time, the services of government and the initiatives of government, let's take housing as one example, reaching people, are actually reaching people. People are actually benefiting from these programs. And therefore, it is one way of measuring the successes of the work that we're doing. And so, yes, uh, all across Guyana, you can hear people uh, talking about the work of the government. Their reactions are positive, and indeed, there are times when they have criticisms about some things that they may not find um, to be appropriate or much to their liking. And that too is welcome because we must be able to have these feedback. Tomorrow, the vice president is and a team is going to Berbice again for huge engagements with our residents of Region 6. And therefore, this is the way we go about doing our work on a daily basis. And for me, it is one of the best ways too of being able to gauge what is happening on the ground and being able to find answers and fixes to those problems that our citizens experience from time to time.
But I think at the end of the day, you have to have some really hard data. So, and that really comes from survey
That's the problem.
rather than media one to one or media crowd
But
saying
there
this.
is a collection of data in general on the various programs that we're doing, etc. So
Mm,
that I don't handle that, but
mm,
I'm sure there we have other ways said very well. So
mm,
other ways of measuring impact of the
mm.
work that we do. Very many through governance, through the Ministry of Finance, through other ministries, we measure the impact of our programs. We do.
Now, there's evidence that increase in prosperity brings several maladies, including obesity, depression, suicide, and decrease in intellect. Does the government in Guyana have any plans to combat these maladies? If so, what are these plans?
Well, definitely, I think our approach to development has been one that is holistic. So
Mm,
when we talk about development, it is not limited to only growth in the economy. It is not only limited. It's not limited to access to house lots. It is also about what we do for some of the matters that you refer to, such as depression and suicide, mental health issues,
mm,
etc. In our health program and our health sector, you will see wide-ranging initiatives that seeks to capture or to address rather all of these matters. And the Minister of Health could outline for you very much more eloquently than I can all the various initiatives in health and to be able to guide us and guide you on a daily basis, guide you rather in the various areas of health that we concentrated on to be able to bring about a healthier population, a population that is much more educated on lifestyle diseases, the focus on primary health care, the focus on digitizing our health care as well. As you know, just only recently we signed on with Mount Sinai group to be able to do some very elaborate and expansive work with us here in Guyana, even in area of research, etc., in relation to our health and the development of our health.
Minister, I want to bring you back to the question of this burning issue of racism that is being peddled by the opposition. I think what ignited this in the beginning was when the PP took office in 2020 in August. They had to lay off a whole set of PNC political appointees. Now, I know that that is normal. Whenever government change, you're supposed to go automatically, you're supposed to file your resignation. But in Ghana, they don't do that. Now, as a result of that, many of the people who are laid off happen to be Afro-Guyanese. So they started to keep nice about that. When they were in power, when they took power in 2015, they laid off a lot of PP employees as well. But you want to comment on that?
Well, yes, you're right. There were people who were laid off. Now, you could imagine us being accused of racism by laying off or having let go from government services Joe Harmon, who was actually fighting to stay on the job for whatever and by whatever means, actually put up a fight. And there are many others. The politicians are the ones who were relieved of their jobs, and the high profile ones who are known to be part of the APNU government apparatus and had to make way for many of the positions in government. And so, if that is discrimination, racial discrimination, then, you know, I don't know. It is for us being able to measure these issues on its merit, not to take every act or action as an act or action or that is being racist or have some racist should have some racist connotation attached to it. And that's the problem. The absolute baseless accusations, absolute. One, I'm sure, would be impressed with an opposition that can bring forward a list to say, listen, over time, these are the specific cases, the specific individuals who have lodged complaints, whose matters have been investigated, and at least found on the face of it to be um, linked to some act of racial discrimination. Nothing, absolutely nothing. And so, how could you take these guys seriously? And I know the opposition have intelligent people. They have, but I believe their intelligence, of course, is most suited just for the position they occupy or the role they occupy at the moment, being in opposition. These guys are very vacuous, very shallow, nothing of substance. Look at what you get on a daily basis, but you still have to respond. You still have
They
to react.
also cite the case where the government dissolved SARA because SARA was populated mostly with their supporters, almost 100%. So that's another case that is cited to
That was a
justify.
total waste, absolute waste of taxpayers' money. You know the billion, do you know the $1 million salaries the SARA operatives were getting? Clive Thomas and all the others, I believe, the names, totally scandalous. Waste of taxpayers' money. All part of a witch hunting uh, mechanism that he had in the APNU AFC. And people know this. People know this. And why you think a lot of those things have had no traction? because the society is onto many of these issues too. Our people are paying attention. They know what has been taking place, and they all felt the blunt of the hardships during the Abdul AFC reign in office. We have seen all the efforts at trying to paint negative picture about the work of the government, but people in this country know and understand what we are doing. I believe that it is not at the level where we can draw absolute comfort. We have to continue to share information. We have to continue to educate people. That will always be a constant, but there are people who are paying attention and understand the issues. And therefore, the opposition uh, will always find its way making these accusations and criticisms baseless as they are, and the society would just have to
So
find a way to.
you're saying the dissolution of Sarah was economic necessity and not based on any grounds like racial discrimination. Is that correct?
I don't know any act of ours was, and somebody help me. I don't know that any act or action of the People's Progressive Party civic government has any relationship to targeting people on the basis of race. Absolutely none. I am not aware of any. And if there's anyone that can convince me that there is, and they are, then I am willing to listen. And if I'm convinced, I am willing to make certain statements. People have, and so it is for us an understanding of the dynamics in our society and being able to understand the issues and deal with the issues as they come, and make sure that we don't mislead ourselves, and we not don't fall prey to all of the misguided information and techniques and tactics of
Okay,
the opposition.
I have another follow-up question here. There was a person who appeared on Globespan program last night, and he was saying that the reason why the PP government does not want to increase the salary of public servants is because most of them happen to be Afro Guyanese in the public sector. I don't share that view, but they're arguing that cost of living is very high. My last check is the cost of living in Guyana is just about 5 or 6%. In the US is about 8.25%. In Europe is about 8% too. But what are your thoughts on that?
Hogwash.
That the
This
government
issue
does not
about
want.
the public service issue about raising salary. We raise salaries. In 2 years, we raised public servant salary 7%. We have, over 2 years, we have been addressing the issue of cost of living. And we all know, all of us, those of you who reside in the US, those of us who reside here in Ghana, people who reside, in fact, incidentally, about 5 o'clock this afternoon, I was talking to a friend from London, and we were talking about the cost of living issue there. And all across the world, we know, due to COVID and the war in Ukraine, between Ukraine and Russia, has exacerbated the situation, and the cost of living issue is a sore issue across the world. This afternoon on BBC, the gas prices in Kenya, all across the world, you have issues. But have we been sitting idly by doing nothing about the issue of cost of living? The answer is no. We have been active on this issue as a government. We have been addressing and creating measures to cushion the impact of the cost of living. We have, look at gasoline, zero taxes on gasoline, as a deliberate measure targeting the cost of living issue. We have been able to put in place many other measures, hardship measures, measures to deal with the hardships that people are facing. When we came into government, we granted a 25,000 COVID cash grant to households. We then went into reducing taxes on over 200 items in 2 budget cycles. We did that. That was all part of measures to reduce the impact and to try to address cost of living. We have targeted specific groups like the disabled. Children are eligible for 100,000 cash grant per annually. That's in place. Our pensioners have had increases. We've brought the freight cost back to um, the pre 2020 levels. We have so many measures we have addressed as a means of being able to address the cost of living issue. And we're not done. We are monitoring and we are assessing on a daily basis what else can be done. And therefore, it is for us a very active issue. It is a matter of concern. We have been pushing agricultural production. We have been pushing the economy to make sure that it can generate growth. And we are working with our people, stakeholders, farmers, manufacturers, etc., to be able to work at this cost of living issue, because a lot of it too can be addressed and we can reduce the impact if we can produce more, grow more, and use more from what we grow and produce here. And so it is all very huge efforts in agriculture and various other sectors to be able to bring about the type of relief on the issue of cost of living. But you just think about it. In the public service, let's look at it. Let's be fair. The police force, the head of the police force is an Afro-Guyanese. Several of his lieutenants are Afro-Guyanese. The army, Afro-Guyanese. The fire service head, Afro-Guyanese. Prison service. Many other government agencies are headed by Afro-Guyanese. And we have lived through this as a PPP civic government for many years, contented with the fact and the reality that our country is a multi-ethnic society. And every single one who work in the public service or in the private sector belongs to us. Us as a Guyanese family, as a Guyanese collective. And therefore, our job is to embrace them and to embrace each other. We want people to work and to be professional. And that's a different issue. If you're not professional and if you don't do what you have to do, that's a different issue. But we have in the public service many Afro-Guyanese, and we also have many other races in the public service, albeit not to the satisfactory levels that most people believe it can be or should be. But it is what it is. But we as a government have, that's our philosophy. Our philosophy is to work with people regardless, because this country belongs to all of us. This country for us is about every single race, and it is about every single group. And therefore, it is only by working together that we can all take this Guyana to the ideal place. A Guyana in which we can experience grand development. We can make sure that all our citizens benefit from its wealth. We can make sure that we are all sustained economically with the wealth that we can create and generate from the resources that we have.
Okay, thank you very much. Could we take your last question?
Mr. McCoy, I would like you to comment in closing. I know you've traveled about in the country quite a lot. You've met people of different races and you interact with them. I would like you to comment about your perspective of the race relationship in Guyana. You didn't get it? You didn't hear me?
I didn't hear you. I lose you at a particular point of your question. Could you repeat it?
Okay, I
The
know.
status, actually, the status of race
Yes,
relations.
I know you've traveled around the country. You've met people of different races. You interact with them. What is your overview about of the status of race relationship in the country?
Well, look, I'm very optimistic that our country is coming together and our country would heal on this matter of race. I am very, very optimistic. And in particular with the work by President Ali, who is in the forefront of all that we're doing, our cabinet colleagues, my cabinet colleagues rather, and other government officials, and the initiative and programs that we're carrying as a government, we will come around to a healing on this matter. It is for me very interesting moving around right across this country. I went to the barber shop as I do every Monday. Last Monday, this week, when I visited the barber shop, a young man came off his bicycle, Afro Guyanese. I don't know him personally, and he gave me a pound and he said, "The government is doing well. I'm so proud of you guys." And as you move around in the Amerindian communities and so many other communities, you get this uh, expression of uh, of some level of satisfaction over the work that the government is doing, because people will tell you too. But I still believe that we need to do this, or we need to do more of this, and so forth. And that's the way it should be. That's the way it ought to be. We need to have feedback from our citizens too. And it is not about just listening to prayers. It is about us being able to have feedback. And I appreciate those feedback very often. And I look forward for the most frank and candid feedback from our citizens. And so I'm very optimistic that we're coming around. The One Guyana platform is a platform for all of us. It is for all of us to recognize that we have a common mission to heal our country from this racial problem, to move our country in the direction of prosperity. And the faster we are together and unified, it is the faster we'll be
All right,
able.
thank you, Dr. Budu. Professor Budu, your last question.
Yes. Mr. McCoy, what is the state of digitization in Guyana, especially regards to e-government and e-governance?
Well, we are continuously working on our ICT. As you know, it is part of our manifesto promise. It is really about, for us, being able to use ICT as an enabler for jobs, as an building the economy, supporting national development. And so we have many programs that we're working towards, strengthening our internet infrastructure. We're working on bridging the digital divide, which is linked to our manifesto promise, of course, by connecting people to the ICT revolution. We are enhancing the lives of our citizens by making sure that they're connected to Wi-Fi. As you know, we have a free Wi-Fi, community Wi-Fi program, in which we have about 80 communities so far for 2022 that have been new locations, rather, on the coastline that have been hooked up, being linked up for free Wi-Fi. In 2023, we're hoping that we could have another 200 new locations. We have the satellite ground stations which are supporting connectivity to like 90 interland locations. In 2023, we're hoping that we can increase those by about 40 to 50 more sites. Cybersecurity, we're paying attention to, because that's important too. And the threats that poses to societies. And so we are paying attention on securing the infrastructure and monitoring and ensure legislation review for cybersecurity and so forth, and tracking. E-services, and mobile applications for development. All these things we are doing as part of our grand ICT plan. As you know, we do have a national plan. We are working on the various phases of our national plan. As you know, one of the first acts within 2 months of coming into government, we've been able to liberalize the telecommunication sector, demonopolize the GT&T hold on the telecommunication sector, and we have very many players who coming into the sector now, and investors, small and medium and large scale investors, that we can talk about at another time, and working towards developing our ICT.
Okay, thank you very much, Minister, and I'll pass you on to our host.
Minister McCoy, thank you so much. I will now ask you for your closing remarks.
Well, in my closing, I would like to say that thank you very much for inviting me on your program and for such wide ranging discussion on the development issues in Guyana and the challenges, and also on the subject of race relation. Very important. And I would like you to understand too and to commend actually the role of the diaspora in what is happening in Guyana, and being very concerned and attentive and also supportive of the work that we're doing here in Guyana, because we consider our diaspora partners to be important to what we're doing here. We want you to be connected to the prosperity. We want all our people here as well to be connected to the prosperity. And it is for me a very humble task to be able to contribute in whatever way I can in making us a Guyana in which all can be proud of. And I will continue to work and work very hard towards the realization of a Guyana in which we can all be at total unity, and we can all make sure that we have the common objective and mission, fulfilling rather the common objective and mission of a prosperous Guyana. Thank you very much all for being part of, or allowing me to share this program with you this evening.
Thank you very much.
Beautifully said. Thank you very much. Thank you to our panelists, Professor Budu and Mr. Sharad Kubla, to our moderator, Dr. Tara. Thank you so much for being here. To all our viewers, thank you so much for taking the time to be here this evening. Until next time, this is the Guyana Dialogue. Good evening, everyone.